Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
Used to be a nun, huh?
Yeah, I was.
Golly. I've always wanted to meet a nun. I bet you got all kinds of stuff just stirring up inside you.
I haven't met all of you, but there is one among you. One who has endured a true test of faith.
2 weeks ago, there was an incident with one of the sisters at Santa Teresa.
It's been quite a stressful time.
Are you too close?
I don't think either of us ever belonged there.
What happened was traumatizing, to say the least.
And we want you to know we have your best interests at heart.
Sweet sister. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners.
If you become afraid, you can't let it show. You have to be strong. And if you see anything strange, stick to the script. Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
Christ have mercy.
You're frightened. You don't have the luxury to be frightened.
Hello there, Agnes.
Sister Agnes, can you hear me?
Holy Mary, Mother of God, please listen. Please listen.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 393. Releasing December 10 in the US in theaters and on demand is Agnes, a character-driven horror feature that stars Molly C. Quinn as a nun who, after witnessing an exorcism in her convent, undergoes a crisis of faith. A unique and engrossing entry into the ever-growing possession horror movie subgenre, Agnes is the latest film from indie auteur Mickey Reece, who I'm glad to say joins me now on the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. Mickey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So, let's start with the obvious question. What inspired you to make not only a possession movie, but one with a nunsploitation angle? Because from what I read, it seems to have come from two different kind of like mindsets. Your screenwriter, John, he was coming from more of a Catholic kind of background, where you yourself were like looking more into kind of like the imagery of the stuff, mostly kind of like Catholic imagery, Renaissance blocking, etc. Is that kind of like how it all kind of came together?
Yeah, totally. And actually, the exorcism aspect of it was we had actually talked about making a Father Black movie, like about a television exorcist. We had kind of that idea for a long time before this nun or exorcism movie ever came into play. It was a movie about the Father Black character, and so once we decided on nuns and getting into the exorcism part of it, the Father Black character was like kind of recycled from that movie that we never made or never even wrote. So yeah, but I mean, honestly, yeah, I would say it all really, of all the ideas, it really came from the Father Black character.
It's interesting that you talked about that character in particular. So, I don't know what type of interpretations you had in the film from like a Catholic perspective. So I'm a practicing Catholic myself, as well as being a film critic. So whenever I get films like this on my radar, I watch it with a different kind of angle, as you can imagine. So, and I know that you were very much open to interpretations for your movies, right? I mean, you encourage it, in fact, for people to have their own interpretations for their films. You don't want to lay out kind of like a track work of where it should go. You want them to make their own perspectives. So as I'm watching the film, I'm thinking to myself, a lot of these characters kind of present different facets that's going on, not only in the church, but also kind of like in Christianity in general. So you were talking about so we're talking about, say, Ben Hall's character of the priest. He kind of, to me, he kind of represents kind of like the scandal in the church, if you know what I mean, kind of like what's happening there. Mary, the character played by Molly C. Quinn, she kind of represents kind of like the crisis of faith, if you will. The Father Black character kind of represents to me the charlatan aspect of it, and Agnes kind of represents the evil that's kind of crept into the church as well. What do you think of that interpretation? Is there any type of validity in that whatsoever?
Well, it's, when John and I are writing, we kind of like go through every variable of every situation, every character, even lines, you know what I mean, of what they mean and what they could mean or how they could be interpreted. We kind of go through all of that and then, make a conscious decision to kind of make it still to a degree like open-ended, where it gets in the story, it gets us the logic of the movie. It gets us from point A to point B, but without actually having to nail something down to where this means this, and this is only one way that this could make sense. So I mean, really not going through with an agenda. It was more of like, we of course kind of created this like cynical view of religion, but then we also, create a very positive, like enlightening form of or a view of religion in the sandwich scene at the end. So we don't really say one way or the other on how we feel about religion, because there really is no passion behind how we feel about religion. It was just kind of like, let's explore both sides. So I mean, it's all, and that's all any movie is. You know what I mean? It's just expression and exploration of yourself.
The sandwich scene you just mentioned there, that to me, it's surprisingly poignant to me in regards, because it's very much the monologue that Jake Horowitz's character has, the character of Benjamin. It's kind of like when we first introduced to him, he's like this novice priest in the movie, and at the end, I believe he's fully ordained. He seems to have the collar on and everything else like that. The whole point of the monologue is like it's about faith and the struggle to find God. He's eating this sandwich. You got to go through the bread. You got to go through everything until you get to that piece of meat in the middle of it. It's really interesting because it's kind of like a rich history in movies, kind of like of food and theology. I don't know if you've ever seen Angel Heart. There's a famous scene in that movie, Robert De Niro, when he's eating the egg, and the egg kind of like represents the soul. It is kind of like similar to that. Was that scene in Angel Heart kind of like inspiration whatsoever in how you want to approach the monologue in your movie? Having like this piece of food kind of like play a part as a monologue for theology in your film? Well,
I have seen Angel Heart. That's the Mickey Rourke movie with De Niro plays Lou Cipher, right?
Yes.
It's and like Lisa Bonet.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't remember it because it was a long time ago when I saw it. So if I got anything from that, it was just kind of buried in my subconscious.
When it comes to location in your movies, location often used to dictate how you kind of like present your stories. You are an indie filmmaker, so you find your location, you kind of build your story around that. Agnes is the other way around. The convent in the movie, from what I've read, it's like you found kind of like this 3-story kind of Victorian style house. What was the process like in finding that location? Did you try to find like actual convents themselves to film in?
Well, we went to a convent. We found a convent. We went, and there were these convents that, from the outside, they looked amazing. The inside, they were just so boring. Just like it was just like there's nothing we can do with these, and also very small, and I don't know. I wanted the nuns to be classier than that. I wanted that whole situation, this kind of classical. You're right. Yeah, totally like kind of a Victorian setting. Like, and I didn't care if it didn't work with the logic of an actual convent, because we're not trying to create realism here. We're we're creating our own world and our own logic within the movie. And so then finding this this giant mansion that we shot it in, I was like, this is perfect. This is how it has to be, even though everyone was like that, but this is not where this is not where nuns would be. And I was like, I don't care about that. These are where these nuns are. This is where these nuns live.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by 80s Tees. 80s Tees is an online retailer of licensed t-shirts and pop culture gear from your favorite movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, comic books, and musicians. Celebrate your inner 80s nerd and click on the link in the show notes below to get the raddest retro t-shirts delivered to your door. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Loot Crate. Founded in 2012, Loot Crate is the worldwide leader in fan subscription boxes. Loot Crate partners with industry leaders in entertainment, gaming, sports, and pop culture to deliver monthly themed crates, produce interactive experiences in digital content, and film original video productions. No matter what you geek out about, Loot Crate has a subscription box for you. To get your very own exclusive collectibles, apparel, and gear delivered to your door, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is also brought to you by Vudu. Watch the latest movies and TV shows anytime, anywhere. No subscriptions, no contract. Enjoy stunning quality in up to 4K ultra high definition at home and download and watch on your mobile device as well. To rent and buy from over 100,000 titles or watch thousands of movies free with Vudu Movies on us, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the show. When it comes to casting in your film, how did Molly Quinn become the Mary in your movie? Have you known of her before? Did you have to audition people for that role? How did she become about to be the lead in your movie?
Well, with Molly, this movie wouldn't happen if it weren't for Molly. You know, Molly and Elon and Matthew, they're Quagmire. The production team's called Quagmire, and they took the whole movie under their reins. You know, we had the script done. John and I wrote the script. We sent it to Divide and Conquer, who worked with us on Climate of the Hunter, and then Divide and Conquer sent it to Quagmire because they were interested in something like this, like a horror movie in this specific budget range, and they really liked the script and thought it was very unique, and so they approached us about it, and then I met with Molly, and honestly, casting someone like Molly, like for this movie, knowing the history of movies I've done before, where it's just literally like casting from my local pool of actors. I didn't know who it was going to be. I was going to figure it out then, but when Molly wanted to do it, it was almost like, oh my God, that right there made the movie. You know what I mean? Just having her, and it was very easy to imagine her in the character whenever we met, because she's got that very angelic quality to her face, and just this kind of like calming presence that really it really kind of makes you, like when you're watching the beginning of the movie, like she has a presence there where you know that this character is important somehow. You just don't know how it's going to play out or how important she's going to be. And then the second half of the movie where it's all her movie, you know what I mean? It's like, it's very rewarding. So it was, she was great. It was a no-brainer on casting Molly.
Another person in the film is Ben Hall, and you've worked with him before. He's kind of like a legend, isn't he? Like in Oklahoma, kind of like a scene where you're based in. He plays the role of Father Donahue. Is it a given that often when you put together a Mickey Reece film that there's going to be a role for Ben, because he's just so great in immersing himself in just so many different characters and brings so much different elements to his films, doesn't he?
Yeah, with the past 3 movies, it has definitely been a given that, like, all right, where are we going to throw Ben here? Where are we going to put Ben in here? Ben's got to carry some part of it because, he's just so amazing. And yeah, I would say the only role that ended up being cast was like that was specifically written for them was Ben Hall as Father Donahue, because going through the movie, writing the movie before, we had wrote in some specific actors or some specific characters for that when we knew who was going to play them, but then like whenever Quagmire signed up, they like had a whole different idea for casting and presented all these different options, and it was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to reimagine this a little bit, but the movie's better for it. And but yeah, Ben Hall was the only one that actually ended up being like the role that was specifically designed for him.
Kind of like in your previous film, Climate of the Hunter, you take on kind of like these horror genres where you make them your own. I'm curious, when you take on a film like the Possession film, I mean, there's been so many of them. There's already kind of tropes established, kind of, in that whole kind of genre. When you are writing the film with John, do you have a list of things that you don't want to approach when making this film? There's things you don't want to touch. You don't want to be the guy with the possessed crawling on the walls, or head spinning backwards, or pea soup and stuff like that. Is there things you don't want to touch when it comes to that kind of a genre of filmmaking?
No, we don't really. It's kind of like once we have like the idea of the movie and kind of an outline that we've agreed upon, and then the movie just kind of writes itself. And if the movie doesn't write itself, then something's wrong. Like something's wrong if you have to think about it too much. And so. There very well could have ended up being, someone crawling on the wall or something, like, because it was just, once we figured out the characters, it's really the most important thing is the characters. And so once the characters were figured out, the movie just kind of like goes by it, writes itself.
You are incredibly prolific as a filmmaker. From my count, Agnes, I think is the 29th film in the last 12 years for yourself. At one point, you were doing like 3 films a year. I read that for yourself, you once said that filmmaking is kind of like a necessity. It's something you need to get out of your system, these stories that you have. As your name as a filmmaker gets bigger and bigger, and so do your budgets and your time on set, not to mention, what you're doing now, the promotions of these films as well. Do you feel you were able to make films at the click that you were happy with? I mean, can Mickey Reece can make 1 film a year and still be satisfied? Can you still get that kind of like that release that you need as compared to previous earlier in your year when you're doing like 3 films a year?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it ever got to the point of doing, one every couple of years, 1 every 3 years or something, then yeah, that would be very heartbreaking. But I think I'm satisfied with 1 a year because there's so much more involved in them now. You know what I mean? So it's more about just keeping myself busy.
Well, I've got to say, Mickey, that Agnes was a delight to watch. I wasn't sure what I was going to watch when it came my way, but I really appreciate the film that you had here, what you and John did with the material. And for everyone out there listening, December 10 in the US and theaters and on demand, please check out Agnes. It's a surprising film in regards to the way you approach the subject matters in the movie and the way where the characters go. And I think it's so much more rewarding because of that. And Mickey Reece, I thank you for your time today, and congratulations with the film.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.